This trend of re-releasing old games on the new consoles is just showing how much better older games were. Mount & Blade Warband is a 2010 game released exclusively to the PC, and it's still great now. With the power of the PS4 and Xbox One, we can see this game's graphics. Oh no. Alright, I'll address the elephant in the room. Mount & Blade looks like a PS2 game, but do not let that dissuade you, because it's a pretty unique game for the consoles considering their pretty vapid games library. In Mount & Blade, you are a lone adventurer who comes to the land of Calradia to seek adventure and whatever you want. Fame, fortune, the love of a lady, typical RPG stuff really. But despite a pretty generic setup, Mount & Blade emphasises building your own army and taking part in large-scale battles. You get plonked into the overworld with no direction. I suggest start off by going from village to village recruiting volunteers, so you have a gang of rowdy villagers chucking stones. If they survive battles, they earn XP and can be leveled up into different roles and can be specialised even further. Don't worry, you don't have to manage each of your 100-man army's equipment, just yours and your companions, who are basically like party members in normal RPGs with special skills to help your armor. As you progress, you go from villagers using their tools to fully trained knights, archers and cavalry, making whoever dares fuck with you your bitch, and the progression is really addictive. However, the early game can be pretty tough going. Enemies are better trained and in higher numbers. Also, the limited amount of money you have early in the game can make paying your army a ball ache, so you have to start off small, taking out small groups of bandits and delivering letters for lords. You know, in most RPGs, when bandits demand a toll, you tell them to chong you off and wipe them from the face of the earth. Well, in this, you're going to have to swallow your pride and pay them in the early game, because they will more than likely outnumber you. The combat is unique and feels right with the setting. You have 4 different directions you can swing: left, right, overhead and a stab using the right stick. It can be a bit jarring since it also controls the camera, but I got used to it. And you have 4 directions to block, so if someone takes an overhead swing at you, you block up. There is an auto block feature, but turn that off. It adds a lot more nuance to the combat, or you can use a shield which blocks all directions anyway. You also have archery, crossbows and throwing weapons to specialise in, and obviously mounted combat as the name implies. It works great in one-on-one duels, and you can take on about 3 blokes if you're clever with your positioning, but don't expect to be taking on a 40-man army on your own. It's just not designed for that. And it makes sense. If you're in a fight on a battlefield surrounded on all sides with just a sword, odds are you're going to get battered. Other than combat, you'll be moving around the overworld looking for quests or joining one of the game's factions. Whilst the factions have different lands, they don't have any ideals or personality to them besides their unit types, so picking one doesn't carry much weight to it. As time in game passes, all the groups make peace agreements and declare war on each other at different times, so the conflict is always changing. Of course, you can just go against all the factions and try to make your own, but I would say it's best to use one of them to gain some lands and wealth first, since you can just become a mercenary for them for a couple of months. Right now I'm trying to court a lady. I've duelled the arsehole that was also seeking her out and won, and the lord I'm serving at the moment is just a means to an end. Once he's paid me loads and given me land, I will rebel against him, kill his family, kidnap his wife and ransom her off, then kill him for laughs. The fact that the game gave me that kind of freedom pushed it above most RPGs, most of which result into go into this dungeon, take this item, now make a cunty or nice choice. There's a lot of depth in the game, more than you realise at first. There's a full trading system, taxing your villages, prisoner management, a relationship system, though that's a bit weird. I remember I delivered a letter for a lord and my relationship with him went up by 1, fair enough. Then for the same lord, I helped him and his army siege an important castle from the enemy, single-handedly killing 25 men, and my relationship goes up with him by 1, so yeah, that needs a bit of work. To add to my difficulty complaint about the early game, there is activities that just feel unfair unfair all the time. Tournaments in cities give you a random weapon each round, and it can get really annoying when you're against a team of sword and shield wielders and then the game arms your team with throwing javelins. Sieges as well just feel one-sided on the attack. As you can imagine, with battles being this large, the AI isn't exactly tactical or clever. They just charge up the ladder, blocking your way, and get mowed down by all the archers, and half of your health is gone by the time you get onto the walls. And the game can reset you back to square one in one fell swoop if you're not careful. I was raiding an enemy village with my army of about 70 men, then one of the enemy faction's armies turns up with 500 men. I'd beat the count before in battle, so he had a bit of an axe to grind. Excuse the pun. Problem was, I could let my army cover my retreat and get away but lose loads of honour and reputation, attack them, surely lose and be taken prisoner, or just surrender like a pusset, all of them negative outcomes. But despite this defeat, I escaped captivity a few days later and built my army back up and fucked his shit up when he was weak. Even with Mount & Blade's weird difficulty problems and hideous visuals, it's still a pretty easy recommendation, especially on consoles because there's nothing quite like it. It runs great even with loads of characters on screen at once, which explains the visual setbacks. I even thought the multiplayer was fun. It's nothing but mindless twatting each other, but it is a laugh. It's a very cheap game, around 15 quid I got it for. There's loads to do if you're looking for a game to last you a while as well. Put it this way, I don't play many games after I've reviewed them, but Mount & Blade I definitely will.